All right, we are rolling live. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Funk, Minnetonka City Manager, and we are just so pleased as a city to have you here today joining us for our annual State of the City. What a full room. We had changed venues this year and we weren't quite sure how it would turn out, but this is amazing. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy lives, your work schedules, your family schedules, and spending an hour and a half with us here today. And so we're going to promise to get you done by 1:30, so we'll just dive right into it, because I know you didn't come here today to listen to me. Okay, that was a bad joke. So I also want to thank our guests online. So we have our cameras up, so we do have some online guests. I had the pleasure yesterday with our mayor and a couple of our council members to go down to St. Paul. We talked to a couple of our legislators, so I think they're super busy, and I know they're watching online. And I would be remiss if I didn't say hi to my mom and dad. I think they're watching from Iowa, so they're always keeping tabs on me. So hi, Mom and Dad. Well, I hope you're able to sample this great food. A lot of vendors around the room they're all Minnetonka businesses, and I hope you have the opportunity to patronize them after today. And if there's, as you're leaving today, if there's extra food, I think they're okay with you grabbing it. And if you do leave it, that's more for me, but so make sure you grab some on the way out. Yes, thank you to our vendors. So by way of some introductions, again, we weren't sure who was all going to show up today, and so I was prepared to rattle off all of our distinguished guests, but that list is long, and I'd be remiss if I missed somebody. So I just want to mention that we have some school officials here, county commissioner, we have our legislators online. I want to pause and ask our council, our Minnetonka City Council mayor, to just stand up real quickly. And we have faith community leaders here as well. So to me, that just speaks about community. When we can spend an hour and a half of our days, come together as a group, and really just talk about our city, because I think we all care about our city. We're passionate about what happens here, and we're excited to share with you some of the things that are happening. And with today's focus is about business. And so again, we appreciate our vendors and our businesses willing to come in and serve us here this afternoon. To keep things moving, I just want to point you up to the overhead and talk a little bit about our community survey. And you're thinking, State of the City Community Survey, why are we talking about a community survey? And the staff knows this, and again, I want to say thank you to our directors and all of our staff here today. You'll see them floating around. We have a great team here at the city, and I am their biggest cheerleader. I'm our council's biggest cheerleader. I'm our community's biggest cheerleader, and I think this signifies what Minnetonka is all about. Minnetonka residents remain exceptionally satisfied with their quality of life. And this year, and this last year, the city continues to rank at the top of communities across the metropolitan area. Consistently over the past decade, Minnetonka ranks one of the top 3 suburbs. City services, we take great pride in what we do here at the city. Again, a shout out to all of our staff that are here serving you all every day. And we take pride in our services. It's part of our mission, it's part of our vision, it's part of our values, and making sure we provide great customer service. And our services continue to be some of the highest rated in the metro area. A lot of the services that we get ranked on are 96%. You see that there. For the 23rd consecutive year in a row, Minnetonka ranks also among the top 5 highest rated communities in the metropolitan area. And this is quite actually phenomenal, considering some of the polarization that we often see with government, both at the federal, state, but here we're doing it right. I can say that as a city manager because I'm biased, because we do it right. We do a lot of things right. But we're also looking to continually improve. And really what drives us here at the city, what drives our commitment to excellence, and why we are ranked as high as we are, and I thank our council for this, is the vision the city has. And our vision is through our strategic profile. And you have copies on your table. We have 6 major pillars here at the city that drives what we do. Those pillars are financial strength and operational excellence, safe and healthy community, sustainability and natural environment, livable and well-planned development, infrastructure and asset management, and community inclusiveness. I could spend a whole hour going through our strategic profile, but I want to point that out because it's what we do. It drives what we do every day. And that's who we are as a city. The other thing I just mentioned about our strategic profiles, you can find that on our dashboard. The city has a website, and we also have what's called Minnetonka Matters. Go to Minnetonka Matters, you'll find our strategic profile. We have a dashboard. We're proud of what we do at the city. So if you ever are curious about how we're doing and want to see what we're doing, go to our website. You'll see that information listed there. You also have on your table the Thrive newsletter. That's a publication that we prepare. We send it out to our business community, and we really want to make sure we're connecting as a city to our business community. Now, that's enough of me. Let's move on to our featured speaker. We are excited to highlight Minnetonka businesses, big and small, as part of this year's State of the City event. All of our business makes such wonderful contributions to our community, and today's speaker is a shining example of that. I'm about to introduce Kristen Denzer. She's the founder of Tierra Encantada. I need to read this so I make sure I get it right. She started the centers with the sole purpose of creating a place where she would send her own children. The Minnetonka Center is one of 15 currently open or in development across the country. They provide a unique blend of Spanish immersion, preschool, education, and fresh cooked organic meals. Kristen described herself as a serial entrepreneur. She has launched and sold 2 other companies and manages more than 100,000 square feet of commercial real estate space. The Small Business Administration named her Business Person of the Year in 2022. In addition to all that, she also served time as a member of the Oakdale City Council, so she understands city perspective. We're looking forward to hearing more from her, and with that, please welcome me in a warm introduction, Kristen Denzer.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the City of Minnetonka for having me today. It's an honor to be here and be able to share about my entrepreneurial journey. You know, I grew up here in Minnesota, not too far from here, Cottage Grove, so about 40 minutes, depending on the weather. And growing up, I was fortunate to have a role model in my life with my grandparents that were very involved in the community and also very entrepreneurial themselves. You know, some of my fondest memories as a child were helping at their gas station, you know, emptying the vending machine with my big old ice cream bucket, getting all the coins out, or sitting at the counter, checking out people, giving them their change. And they also were very involved in the community, which I think guides some of the decisions that I've made over the years as I've, you know, grown in my career and my goals. You know, so I never actually, though, planned to be an entrepreneur. You know, as a kid, I wanted to be an attorney. And so that was the plan really up until graduate school, thinking that I wanted to go to law school. I got into law school and then decided not to go. What really kind of shifted things for me was in graduate school, I had the opportunity to do consulting. And that was really the first chance I had to experience what it was like to not work for someone else. Be able to kind of pick my own schedule, which gave a lot of perspective to me with why, you know, I always went to my grandparents when I was sick, because my parents both worked jobs, normal jobs, I guess I would say. So when I was consulting, you know, I enjoyed that. I got to actually work with a lot of cities with some of the work I did with Metro Blooms, which focuses on like rain gardens. And doing that over time, I ended up opening several businesses, was mentioned. So Tierra is actually my 5th business that I started. And it was started because what do you need when you have 4 businesses and are in graduate school and have kids? You need childcare. And so I started looking for childcare. And as I was looking, I had just moved to the east side of the Twin Cities, and I saw that there were really long wait lists. I think anyone that has kids and has looked for childcare, I see a lot of nodding heads, knows what that's like. There's long wait lists, you know, there's not always a lot of great options. You know, there's programs where they're okay, but you know, there's a lot of screen time maybe, or the meals are not the best. And so those were some of the things I saw, but then those programs would also have like a 2-year wait list, for example. And so being a serial entrepreneur, you know, the first thing I thought was, well, you know, I can do that. You know, so did the first thing I always do when I think about a new business. I ran the cash flow projections. I do not have a business background. I just put it together. I looked at it. I was like, okay, this looks like it could be okay. So decided to just go for it. Learned a lot along the way. Made a ton of mistakes. You know, it was the first time I had got an SBA loan. None of my other businesses, I needed them. So I took on a lot of risk and had no idea what I was doing. You know, I took out about $20,000 in working capital. So for anyone that owns a business knows how little that is. It covered about 1 month of payroll. And when your business opens and doesn't do what it was supposed to, nobody wants to give you more money. And so I poured everything literally that I had for almost a year into it. And if I didn't have other businesses, I would have had to probably declare bankruptcy, to be honest. I didn't know how to market. I hadn't really kind of planned very well. Even though I had other businesses, there's just a whole different animal. Fortunately, though, after a year, I was able to finally break even and start looking ahead at what next. And so when I started planning ahead, I really took that time to see, like, what did I do wrong and what should I do different so that I don't have that happen again. During that time, I saw like how important location is. So picking the right city, picking the right neighborhood, looking, for that community of families that has the values that align with what we're about, how important all those things were when picking a location. And so that's really what I did when I started looking for the next location. And so in 2016, opened the second location in Minneapolis, our Bryant location, and had pretty much as far opposite experience as you could. I mean, that was profitable day one and full within months. And so from there, we really didn't stop opening. So opened a location in 2018, 2019, 2020. And then in 2021, our first franchise location opened here in Minnetonka. And so I just want to take a second to have Mariella stand up. So Mariella is our Minnetonka franchise owner, and so she took on a huge amount of risk. She took on a huge amount of risk. Starting a business is scary. I mean, it's scary, it's a lot of risk, but she trusted that, we were going to be there to support her, and she aligned with everything that we were about and picked a great spot here in the city and saw that there was a community of families here in Minnetonka that valued our mission and really came and supported her business. And so that, I think, is really important when we look at locations. And so 2022, we really grew a lot. So we opened 4 more corporate locations and another franchise. So we are now open in 4 states. We have 11 open, and then a number more, as was mentioned, in development. And so some of the things that I just wanted to share that I have learned over the years with opening a business and some of the mistakes I've made, because that's something that a lot of times when talking to people about starting a business, they'll ask, like, how did you decide to do it? Like, I'm not sure. I don't know if I should do it. What should I think about? And I think a lot of times the difference between somebody that is a business owner and somebody that isn't is the business owner just did it. You just do it. I mean, you can spend years thinking about doing something and planning, but you got to just take the move to do it. And I've always had the mindset that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it 100%. I'm going to do it, and I can't fail because there's no other option. And so that's one of the biggest things that I hear from entrepreneurs or people that have thought about starting a business is that. So the other thing that I wanted to just talk about a little bit is cities and how cities support businesses. So with us, for Tierra, we have experienced some really great support from cities over the years and appreciated the flexibility that some cities have had with different things. And a great example of this is with parking. And so with parking, there is in some cases with cities, there's some pretty outdated requirements in terms of parking spaces per square foot for buildings. And fortunately, we've really appreciated when cities will partner and look at, is that really needed for the building use or for our use? And been able to make variances or things like that for us. And I think that's a way that businesses can partner with cities to really support and come to the community. And I think things like this event here, partnering with businesses to bring them in, highlighting them here so that people get exposed exposed to new, different businesses is a great way to show support, because when you start a new business, especially if it's your first business, you oftentimes don't know like what you're doing all the way, if it's right, if it's wrong, if you should market here or market there. And so any sort of help, sometimes it can be the difference for a business when they get that email saying that they can come, because they were thinking like, this is it. I don't know if this is the right move. And then they get an email from a city of Minnetonka asking them to come out. And then people learn about them that they didn't already know. And so things like that, I think, are really important for businesses like ours when we come to a new community, especially, to just help highlight and bring awareness about our presence and maybe reach out to people that didn't already know about us. And so I just wanted to end with a quote that I recently read that I really enjoyed. People like to say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to build a business. So thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Your experience was worth hearing. Good job. Congratulations on your success. Very inspirational. One more time for Kristen. Thank you. Okay, now I'm pleased to have us here from the Mayor of Minnetonka, Mayor Brad Wiersum. I'm going to invite him and Brandy up in 1 second. Oh, or now. Mayor Brad Wiersum first joined the city of Minnetonka, or I shouldn't say joined the city, but he first got elected to city council in 2003. He was elected mayor in 2017 and is currently serving in his second term. The mayor is a shining example of servant leadership, a strong community volunteer, and serves on a number of boards. And this past year was also president of the League of Minnesota Cities. And so for those that aren't familiar with the League of Minnesota Cities, it's really our umbrella organization serving 850 plus cities in the state of Minnesota, and Mayor Wiersum led that organization for over a year. So we appreciate his leadership here at the city. And then Brandy Powell. This year, the mayor asked if we could do something different, and I know he mentioned that earlier, and typically the mayor would come up and he'd spend 15, 20 minutes talking. He's like, let's mix it up this year and get away from more of that traditional speech. Until this year, we are pleased to have KSTP 5 Eyewitness News morning anchor, Brandy Powell, joining us to interview the mayor. Little known fact, Brandy, if you didn't know, is also a Minnetonka graduate. Yay. Prior to joining Channel 5, she worked at MSNBC as well as stations in San Diego and Austin, Texas. We do have, so I'm going to invite them up. Come on up. Join me in welcoming them up. So we have a series of questions that Brandy will ask the mayor. We do have, if we have time, we're going to keep things moving, but there are some cards on your table with some pencils or pens. If you have a question that comes up along the way, write those down. Our city clerk, Becky Kuzman, where's Becky? She's back there in the back waving her hand. She'll walk around, gather those cards, and at the end, if we have some time, we'll try to pick out some questions and ask the mayor. If you want to try to stump them, you can. So with that, Brandy, Mayor Wiersum, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, it's so fun to be here. Actually, the mayor and I met yesterday, so in a way it's wonderful. We were talking about everything going on with the city, but also just life and family, and it was enjoyable. So it's nice today that we all get to do that together. It's also nice, as you were just mentioning, I grew up here. One of my longtime dear friends is joining me. We both went to Minnetonka High School, and actually back in the day, I did a year at Deep Haven. Back then they had Minnetonka Intermediate School, MIS. Anyone remember that? They had that, and then I went to Minnetonka Middle School East, so a lot of history here. So it was an honor for you to invite me, you and your team, to come and join you with the State of the City. So one thing you may not know, well, you've served probably almost 2 decades in public office, and I think it's interesting always how people get to where they are, and this was something that the mayor had really wanted to do, to be a leader and serve the public for since back in the day.
A long time. I mean, I had this vision maybe someday of, being a senator or something, but that's when I was in high school and grade school, and then, reality intervenes.
But it's neat, and you've had so many, different sort of aspects to your career that have brought you here today, and I wonder if you can share what that's like to be the leader of Minnetonka and to be able to serve people now in this way?
Well, when I became a city council member, our mayor was Karen Anderson. And she said that one of the key prerequisite to be an elected leader in a city is to love your city. And I can tell you honestly that I do. It is such a tremendous privilege to be part of this city and to provide leadership to this city. Now, I will say, people think that, well, that's really cool, you run the city, you're in charge. Well, that's a nice thought. I'm not even in charge at home. So that's a great thought, but in Minnetonka, we have a system, it's a council manager form of government, which is, if you maybe remember from civics class, it's much different than, well, the mayor's the king. That's not the way it is. It's that we have professional management. And Mike Funk is our city manager. He is the CEO of the city. And I liken being mayor to being the chairman of the board of a company. So the chairman of the board runs the meetings, and the chairman of the board gets one vote, just like every other board member. And I can't make any unilateral decisions. I rely on the support of our city council members who are elected. And collectively, we make decisions. And so it takes 4 votes of the city council to make a decision, a policy decision on behalf of the city. And that's the way it works. It's a great system. I can tell you that, and our council members don't all agree with me, and I don't all agree with them. But I do think that we have a shared passion for the city and that we want to do what's right for the city. And we don't have all 7-0 votes. We have some, 6-1, 5-2. We have 4-3 votes. But we make decisions, and we're all well-intended, even though we may be very different politically or individually or personality-wise. Our goal is to do what's best for the city. So I want to thank my fellow council members for their work on behalf of the city, because we share the objective to do what's best for the city when we serve you.
A lot of hard work, right, by all the council members and by you. And I wonder, one of the decisions, I mean, you have to come together, like you said, sometimes you're all in agreement, sometimes you're not. One big one is about the marsh. I remember I told you yesterday, I said, gosh, that's such a staple in the community. It's been here for so long. The city decided to purchase it. Describe, what the interest is in that and how you feel that that's going to serve people in Minnetonka.
Well, thank you for that question. It certainly has been one of the big things that we have worked on over the last couple of months. And the marsh has been a center for wellness and fitness in our community for over 40 years. And it was owned by Ruth Stricker, and she was married to Mark Dayton, who had a lot of money. And the marsh didn't make money, but it was her passion. She wanted to help people be well and be both not just physically well like an athletic club, but spiritually well. And there were just very interesting aspects. And it was a real pillar of strength in our community, and people loved the marsh. But then Ruth didn't live forever, and she died, and she gave it to the YMCA, which was a tremendous gift. But it turned out, and then COVID happened, of course, the pandemic. And so what might have worked out great for the Y didn't work out great for the Y, because the marsh lost a lot of membership. So from a cash flow basis, this gift that was supposed to be contributing to the Y was basically a drain on the Y's resources. And they needed a new path. And so they decided on, I think it was October 15th, that they were going to close the marsh at the end of the year. And talk to any of your council members. Did we get a few emails? We got dozens of emails, and the theme was Save the Marsh. And we looked at it, and one of the challenges with this situation was that cities are process-oriented. We do not do things fast. So all of a sudden, October 15th is closing, and people wanted us to save the marsh, and oh, by the way, keep it open too. And it was a big challenge. And it was a big decision. I mean, we had to bid for this, and the marsh, I think, had 17 interested parties, or the Y had 17 interested parties. I'll tell you, we weren't the highest bidder, but we had a competitive bid, and it was the Y wanted to continue the legacy and the vision of the marsh. They cared about that, And they were willing to sacrifice some significant amount of money for that, but they weren't willing to sacrifice it all. They weren't going to give it to the city. And they had incurred significant losses keeping the facility running. So the council got to, I mean, certainly I was involved in the conversation with staff, and we agreed that we should go for this, but that's a big decision that the council had to make. And I'm proud to say that we made that decision in the interest of keeping the marsh in the city. But what's that going to look like? We didn't have time to do the public engagement that we are required and want to do. So we had to make a pretty bold decision. We had some closed door meetings to talk about what should we offer and what should we do. And then we in a public meeting, decide that we are going to purchase a marsh. We made the offer. That happened. We closed on it just on the last day of February. And so the city now owns the marsh. But then the question is, well, what are we going to do with it? So we've got a short-term plan. And I think the marsh will reopen partially, not totally, not the restaurant, not all of the parts of the marsh, but we will open sometime in May. And we will get some of the programming up and running because there's a lot of people who really want that programming. But then we need to have a public process. We are going to hire a consultant to look at the marsh and to look at this facility, the community center, to say, okay, how can we best leverage these facilities to the benefit, to the public good? And one other thing, our recreation manager, Kelly O'Day, if you ask him if he had one wish in the city, what do you need more of? His answer is a one-word answer, it's space. And the marsh gives us space to expand our programming and provide more services for our city.
A lot of people, I think, will want to share what they feel during the public input process. Something that you do as a leader of the city along with others is to figure out, like you said, what to do with the spaces. Hot commodities, indoor spaces, outdoor spaces. You look at the city's newest park, Ridgedale Commons, and it's located just right next to Ridgedale Mall there. Cost $8 million. Share with us, why the city decided to make that particular investment.
Well, thank you. That's a good question, and that's a question I've received from a lot of people. What is the city doing putting a park in the parking lot of Ridgedale? What's going on there? And oh, by the way, that's an expensive park. That's a lot of money. Well, I want to tell you that Ridgedale is the commercial hub of our city. This statistic may surprise you, but Ridgedale has 1.2 million visitors to that part of our city every month. It is an enormous economic engine to our city. And oh, by the way, have you been to Brookdale lately? There are a lot of malls in our region and in the country that are going out of business. Where would our commercial hub be if Ridgedale went out of business? The city has a stake and an interest in making the Ridgedale area stronger and more vital. And Ridgedale is changing. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever purchased anything from this company called Amazon. Amazon has fundamentally changed retailing in the United States. And it's much, much tougher. And so we need to support our retailers, and we need to support Ridgedale so that area can be vital. And Ridgedale's changing. It's not just a mall anymore. There's housing going up there. There's more restaurants. There's entertainment venues. My kids gave me a iFly gift certificate. I haven't used it yet, but one of these days I'm going to go there. But I mean, Ridgedale is changing, and the city is investing not just in the park there, but we're also investing in Crane Lake to make that natural area more accessible. We need Ridgedale to be a vital part of our city, not for the next 5 years, but for the next 50 years. And that's why we thought an $8 million investment in a park was a good idea. The other piece of that is when developers build buildings, and when developers build new houses, there's a thing called the park dedication fee. And they give $5,000 to the city that can be only spent on one thing, parks. And so because of all the apartment development that has occurred in the city, we had a pretty good chunk of money sitting there to invest in improving our park system. And the Ridgedale Commons Park is part of that.
It'll be neat to see how that all develops. And you think of as you're starting these new sort of vital components of the community, how to get there and attracting people to go places where you normally don't is a kind of a key part of it. So as you look at the light rail in the Opus area, still a ways out, 2027 looking like the anticipated end of that construction. 1,500 new units of housing constructed in recent years in that Opus area. Describe, how many more could possibly be built, because that's already a lot. And, you described a real interest in attracting even more people to that area than are already there, perhaps working and overcoming some of those challenges to get more people to use that as community space and a place where they want to go with family and friends.
Well, Opus is an interesting part of the city, and it's been an important part of the city for a long time, but it's not really been a destination. You either work there, live there, or you didn't go there. And admittedly, the road system has been challenging. And Jerry Roundhorst, who was CEO of the Opus Corporation, had this kind of utopian vision for what he wanted there. And it largely lived up to that, but it never really totally met all of what he envisioned. And the Red Circle Drive and Yellow Circle Drive, those are all, his vision was those are the Olympic rings. And so that was his vision on what he wanted to do in Opus. But Opus now, with light rail, having a light rail stop there and going through Opus, has fundamentally changed. And it's transitioning. And it's a wonderful area. It's got a great trail system. It's got interesting bridges. It's very interesting, but it was predominantly a business and light manufacturing location with some housing. Now it's transitioning. It's going to have a lot more housing, some of which has been built. Over 600 units have been built, and another 600 units are under construction. And I'm confident we're going to get more proposals for more housing there. But in addition to that, we are working on developing Opus so people aren't afraid to go into Opus. We want to make it more of a destination. And there's always going to be restaurants and things on the perimeter, but really we want to develop that area to provide amenities for the literally thousands of people, additional people who are going to be living there. And we also want to hopefully encourage residents to take advantage of the amenities. And so we're working on public realm improvements, meeting spaces, park spaces, improved trails, wayfinding, so people can, when they go there, they can get out of there. Because that has been a critique. But we really, really value that area, and it's probably the most dynamic and growing part of our city. And I hope you'll all go there as some of these new amenities are developed.
So you just mentioned, Mayor Wiersum, in that answer some about housing. And there's some people, you live here, you might say it's expensive to live here, I can't afford it. Or maybe you're thinking of coming to Minnetonka and you're saying it's out of the budget. What do you say to people who say, housing prices or just cost of living to live here is too much?
Well, that's a challenging question, and it's a challenging dilemma, because I'm not going to look you in the eye and tell you, well, it's cheap to live here, because it's not. We are a very fortunate, well-to-do suburb, and if there's one thing we need, it's more housing, and it's more affordable housing. And that's not unique to Minnetonka. That is a situation that exists across the metro and across the state. And what we're trying to do is be aggressive about supporting affordable housing, both ownership affordable housing and rental affordable housing. Now, Chris Coleman, who heads the Habitat for Humanity, Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity, and used to be mayor of St. Paul, I had a meeting with him this week, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, rental affordable housing is palliative, and ownership affordable housing is curative. And I believe that. I think that, and Julie's going to get mad at me when I use this term, but I think owning a home is part of the American dream. And if we can, I'm old, I still stick to the American dream, I'm sorry, I believe in it. But if we can create opportunities for people to own their homes, so many good things happen. And one of them is the development of generational wealth. But I don't think that's the primary thing, because people need to afford housing. I mean, when people challenge me on affordable housing, I ask, oh, well, tell me, do you want to live in a house you can't afford? We all need affordable housing. Now, what we can afford is different, but affordable housing is a fundamental, basic need in our society, regardless of whether it's a big house on the lake or, you know, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath cracker box, that you still need a safe, good place to live. And I think that's really an important value. So as a city, we're doing a lot of things to encourage affordable housing. We have assistance programs for down payment assistance. We work with nonprofits like Homes Within Reach that are land trusts to help people afford owning a home in Minnetonka. We have rehab programs that people can qualify for low or no interest loans so that they can rehabilitate the houses that they own and that they need. And so we are and then we also support, and we have much more rental affordable housing coming along than we do ownership, because ownership is just much tougher and more expensive to do. But we use programs like tax increment financing, and we have an affordable housing policy that requires people who build multi-unit apartment buildings to have a certain proportion of their building, I think typically 10%, has to be affordable to people who are at or below 80%, or I think 60% of the area median income. So those statistics help us offer more housing in our city. Now, I'm not going to say, well, we all of a sudden, through all that, you know, everyone has enough housing and it's cheap to live here. That will never be the case. The market makes the price. But we as a city believe that we need workers. And we're a city of 55,000 people, 55,000 people. We have 47,000 jobs in Minnetonka. We have more jobs than we have adults living in Minnetonka. So we need housing to enable people to live close to their jobs and be part of our community. So it's a value that we will carry forward. I don't think we'll ever, I think it's a journey and not a destination. I don't think we'll ever have enough affordable housing for all the people who want to live here. But our goal is to stay committed to enabling as many people who want to live in Minnetonka to achieve that objective.
And, you know, people who want to live here, you talk about, you know, building sense of community. Maybe it's for people who are looking to make Minnetonka their home, or maybe it's people who already live here. And, you know, Mike, the city manager, was talking about those kind of pillars you see there on those pamphlets on the table, and you described how it's important in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, making people feel not only that they can survive, but really thrive in Minnetonka is a goal. Describe, you know, your perspective on that and what you want to do moving forward to either bring more community members in or to support those who are already here.
Well, thank you for that question. And as Mike said, the strategic profile that you have on your table has those 6 pillars. And being an inclusive and welcoming community is fundamental. And we use that strategic profile as we, as a council and as staff, works to make decisions. I mean, it's not just a kind of goal that you put on the wall in your office and say, well, we're working on that. We measure our performance based on how we are achieving those objectives. So Minnetonka is increasingly diverse. In the 2010 census, we were 10% BIPOC community. In the 2020 census, we are 17% BIPOC. And if you go to the schools, the younger we are, the more diverse we are. So, you know, I mean, people who have hair color than mine is probably much less diverse. But the younger you are in Minnetonka, the more diverse our community is. And we are committed to making Minnetonka a welcoming and safe community for everyone who comes here. So we are specifically working on programs to make sure that both as our city, as an entity, as an employer, we're diversifying our workforce. I mean, ideally, you want your workforce to kind of reflect the demographics of your city. and we are becoming more diverse, our workforce needs to become more diverse. And we're committed to working toward that. We are committed to measuring that and having that as a clear objective. Because, and we want everyone not to just move here because it's a great place to live. We want people to move here because they are welcomed. We are including them in the fabric of our community, and we want everyone, regardless of race or color, creed, religion, gender, to feel that they are welcome in our community. It's one of our fundamental values, and I strongly believe in that and want to pursue that. And if you have any ideas on how we can do it better, I'm open to hearing them.
So important. Another important topic, sort of switching gears, is a tough topic, and that's about crime, particularly if you look at youth. And one of the things that you talked about with that is really trying to figure out, how do we combat crime? But if you have youth who've served time and coming back out being productive members of the city of Minnetonka, you said it's something that's really important. What are some of your goals? And I mean, no doubt it's hard when you look at crime, specifically at youth, on how to kind of come to some solutions that'll work. But what's some of your vision as it relates to crime and really turning people's lives around?
Well, thank you for that question, and it really is an important and fundamental question. People in our city and in our region and in the metro generally are concerned about crime. And we've heard about crime statistics being up and violent crime being up, and if you drive a Hyundai or a Kia, your car's got a too good a likelihood of being stolen. Crime is an issue, and it is on people's minds. I can say, and I'm pleased to say, that crime in general in Minnetonka is down a little bit. We're down about 4% year on year. That's the good news. But that's, it's the journey. It's not the destination. We're not satisfied with that, but I'm pleased that crime is down. But property crimes are not down. And I don't know if you've ever been a victim of a property crime. I mean, it's not a violent crime. I mean, nobody flashed a gun at you or your life wasn't threatened. But it is so invasive. It is so personal. My wife, our car was broken into. My wife's purse was stolen, and her credit cards got used at a gas station and at Target very quickly. And that was a very traumatic, invasive experience. And I'll tell you what, it made us feel less safe. Now, I've said, every time I've done a State of the City message, I've said, public safety is job one in cities. And I believe that. And so if your car's been broken into or your home's been broken into and you feel less safe, I feel like I'm not doing my job. I'm not delivering on my promise to you to have a safe community. So we really take it seriously. And it is a challenging problem because it's a multifaceted problem. I'm really proud of our police, and I know that our police officers and our police department know that I support them and I stand with them. They are critical, and I support our cops, period. I also support our firefighters. I believe that, and it's important. And our cops do a great job. We do a great job of investigating and arresting. And if that was the end of the story, our crime statistic would be way better than what I just reported to you. But it's not the rest of the story. The criminal justice system requires police officers to investigate and to arrest. But then they require prosecutors to prosecute. And they require judges to make the right decisions. And then they require having the facilities and the places to put criminals so that hopefully we can turn their lives around. And then it becomes much more challenging when you're dealing with youth. Because there were programs, the Hennepin County Boys School, Totem Town in Ramsey County, where when there were youthful offenders, they had programs that hopefully could turn those lives around. And we don't have that anymore. Those places closed. And one of the things we do in our society, and I really regret it, is we see an institution that has a problem. So we got to fix that. We close it. And then what do? It doesn't get replaced. So while those institutions were not perfect, we get rid of them without replacing them. And we need facilities and places to go to put juvenile offenders, to get them in a position to turn their lives around. You know, we want to talk about business, and I think we're going to have a question about business here, but we talk about one of the biggest issues facing our businesses is the shortage of workers. And, you know, if we could turn some juvenile offenders' lives around and make them productive members of society, part of our worker shortage goes away, rather than having those young people be a cost to all of us as taxpayers. And we really need to work on that, but it's multifaceted. If we did everything right in Minnetonka, but we didn't work on the system, we didn't have prosecutors prosecute, and didn't have judges who had options to, I mean, some of these judges want to do the right thing, but they don't have a place to put these kids, so they turn them loose. And, you know, we've all heard the terminology catch and release. Well, we don't like catch and release when it comes to offenders. We need to do better, but we also need to invest in the systems to help youth have a place to go so we can help them get on the right path.
All right, I know you said you'll be working hard on that, and you mentioned business. That's the final question. I know in here you're probably thinking, yeah, you're the journalist, but you don't get to ask all the questions. I know some of you want to ask the mayor a few things, but we just heard from our wonderful businesswoman over here heading up Tierra Encantada. And there's so many small businesses and big ones as well. What's your sort of vision for the business climate right now, Mayor, in Minnetonka?
Well, I'm a business guy. I mean, that was my career. I believe strongly in business, and I'm so thankful. I think we have 2,300, did I get the number right? 2,300 businesses in the city of Minnetonka. And, you know, we just came through the pandemic, and that was brutal, and it was particularly brutal on small businesses. Now, I like to think the city did some things to help out. We did have business support loans, small business support loans to help people during the pandemic and so forth. But one, I'm so thankful for our businesses being represented here. The city stands ready to help support businesses and help deal with some of the problems like parking and, you know, issues that really can stand in the way of understanding what your problem is to help your business be successful. We want to work with you. We just had a recent circumstance where I know our staff jumped through hoops to help an orthodontist who was coming to the city and didn't realize the process for getting a conditional use permit, and made some assumptions that probably were not in their best interest. Well, we follow the rules. We can't say, well, you're nice, so we're going to ignore our rules. We don't do it that way. But I'll tell you what, our staff really jumped through hoops to help this business get the conditional use permit and get the approvals through the city council. Conditional use permits have to be approved by the city council, but we want to work with businesses to help them be successful. We want to deliver the message that we want our businesses to thrive in our city, and we stand ready to partner with you. We have a business publication called Thrive, and hope that you'll pick up copies of that. But our goal is to make it easy to do business right. We want to do it right. We're not going to ignore the rules. And cities are process oriented, but we stand ready to work with all businesses to help our business people be successful. And, you know, Minnetonka is an interesting city. We've got, you know, sole proprietorships and entrepreneurs, very small businesses. We have franchises, as we heard about today. But we also have the largest private company in the world in Cargill. We have the 4th largest company in the country in United Health Group. We are a place where businesses of all sizes and stripes have chosen to locate and can thrive here. So we want to work with you, and if there are problems, let us know.
Very good, very good. Okay, I'm opening it up. I know I could ask questions all day, but I won't. I'm sure some of you have questions for the mayor, questions or comments. I'll let Mike. Mike, do you want to take it over?
I will. I'm going to do a quick time check. We had advertised the event to be done at 1:15, and then I think I said 1:30 in the beginning. So we want to be respectful of everyone's times. What I'll mention is perhaps maybe 1 or 2 quick questions.
Sure.
And then for anyone that has questions afterwards, the mayor will be around. Our council that stood up earlier will be around. You'll see our city staff with name tags on. They're around. So if you have questions, feel free to approach any of us. We'll be happy to answer those. And so we've got a couple questions that we'll hand over to you, Brandy.
Oh, great.
I'll try and be a little quicker.
Now it's good stuff. Okay, our first question here is, what is Minnetonka doing to help the police officers lessen stress, integrate life and work?
Well, that's a good question. Mental health is a challenge throughout society, and it's particularly a challenge among our first responders. And I know the chief talks about one of his programs, Check Up from the Neck Up. And one of the things that we require our police officers to do is to have an annual mental health checkup. And we also we have social workers on staff in our police department to work with our residents. But they're also experts and can support our police officers as well. And I think a big part of it is in terms of Minnetonka, we really, I think as a city, we stand up and really support our police officers. And I think that has a huge impact on their, it's tough being a cop. And there's a lot of people who think all cops are bad. Well, I can tell you that's not the case. But we also work to ensure that our police department has an excellent culture, so that, the chief has told me, and I get to go to swearing in ceremonies, and I really like doing that. But the chief has told me that if we have a class of cadets coming in, or we're interviewing for a position on our police department, he said, and the number of people applying to police officers is down significantly from what it used to be. But if we don't feel that we've got somebody who will fit within our culture and shares our values, we would rather leave that slot empty than hire the wrong person. And I think ensuring that the culture of our police department that is based on community policing and respect and the value of every individual in our community, I think if we hire right, we're going to be helping a lot in terms of the mental health of our whole team. And I think we do a good job of that, but I'll tell you what, in this day and age, there's more we can do. As Mike said, we think we do an excellent job, but it's not enough. We want to continually improve.
All right, thank you for that question. This next question is about housing. And this person says that they're concerned about the high rises that are being built in Minnetonka, taking away from single home ownership and the commitment to our area. What direction do you have with this?
Well, I think that's a good question. I hear about that frequently. And one of the things, since I've been on the council, and I've been doing this it's over 20 years now, we hear about what do people like about Minnetonka, and they like the character of our neighborhoods. They like our city the way it is. Well, but the other challenge we've got is we've got 26 square miles, and they're not 28. They're not 28. Excuse me. We have 28 square miles. Thank you, Julie. They're not giving us any more land, but we're a growing community. And so there's only one answer to being a growing community with no more land, and it's not fill in Lake Minnetonka. We're going to need more density and more dense houses and housing. Now, we're not going to have high rises. We're not going to have 20-story concrete apartment buildings. I'm virtually certain of that. We've not approved anything like that. But we do have some, 4 and 5 and maybe 6-story frame apartment buildings being built. And to me, it's not a whether we're going to have those. It's where are we going to have them. And I think our council generally agrees that we probably need to approve those buildings, but where we put them is very sensitive. Now, Opus is getting a lot of them. I mean, that is a place that can handle some density. And we've had housing built around Ridgedale and along our freeways. Those are good places for greater density. So I can look you in the eye and say, I am committed to our neighborhoods, but I also know that we need more housing, and we are going to have to get more dense just by definition. So it's that combination, and that's where influencing the city council as residents, your thoughts to weigh in is important, because we are going to get more density, but the question is where and how, and those are council decisions, And if you have an opinion, let us know, because we care about what our residents think.
Thank you for that question. Do we have time for one more? Okay, this one, let's switch gears to taxes. So the question is, are property taxes stabilized? Any programs being worked on specifically to help lower property taxes for seniors so that seniors can stay in their homes?
That's a good question. And my answer is not altogether satisfactory, from the perspective that we really don't segment our population in terms of how taxes are paid. I mean, we don't say, well, okay, one class of people, old people like me get to pay lower taxes than younger people. I mean, it's not the way we can do it, and I don't think our tax system is set up that way. But we are very cognizant of taxes, and I have ever since I've been on the council, I've had a passion for helping people understand taxes, because this last couple of years, housing values have skyrocketed. And people have seen, holy cow, my house value went up 20%, and I'm not selling, so that means my taxes are going to go up 20%. What am I going to do? And I like to tell people that's not how property taxes work. Your property value does have an impact on the taxes you pay. But the real thing that drives what your taxes are going to be is the levy increase. And how much is the city increasing its budget? Last year, I mean, for 2023, I think we increased our budget by, what, 5.6%? Or is that too low? What was it, Mike, 5.6?
6.2.
6.2, okay. I'm an optimist, I always round down. So anyway, 6.2% and so all things being equal, everyone's taxes would go up 6.2%. Not an insignificant amount, but less than inflation. Inflation went up 8%. So the levy increase is what you need to pay attention to. What your property value determines is what share of the budget you own. So if all the properties in Minnetonka were worth $1 billion and your house was worth, $500,000, $500,000, well, then you can easily calculate what your share of the budget is. I mean, it's 500 divided by or 500,000 divided by $1 billion, and that's your share of the budget. So if your house goes up 20% and everyone else's house goes up 20%, your share of the budget hasn't changed. So the real number to pay attention to is the levy increase, and not your valuation. Certainly you're going to pay attention to your valuation, and if you added 2 rooms to your house and the valuation went up 20% and everyone else's went up 5%, okay, well, you're going to pay more taxes because your share went up. But it's the levy is the number that you most want to be concerned about. And our community survey says that we're doing okay. Now, I'm not going to tell you our taxes are low and it's a cheap place to live, because I'd be lying to you. But we really work on providing a value to our residents, and we want to make sure our taxes are a good value, and I think we do all right at that. But if you don't agree, my cell phone number is on the city website. Give me a call.
All right, Mayor Brad Wierson, thank you. Thank you for those great questions.
Thank you. Thank you again. We are at our time, 1:30. I know there is a lot of questions in the basket, so I'm glad people are able to ask those. The mayor will be sticking around, like I mentioned, so feel free to, if your question wasn't answered, feel free to find the mayor, find myself, find council or staff. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Honored to serve as your city manager. Appreciate your time and attendance here this afternoon. Hopefully you found it engaging and rewarding. Again, appreciate all of our vendors with the food. Fantastic job. With that, I just want to thank our guests again, Kristen, Brandy, Mayor Wierson. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. Thank you.
And please, I might add, please go to our vendors and go to their businesses and enjoy them.